In 1770, inside the Sistine Chapel in Rome, there was a piece of music no one was allowed to copy. It was guarded by the Vatican itself. To write it down or to take it outside those walls could cost you your place in the church. Then a 14-year-old boy walked in and listened. That night, back at his lodgings, he wrote the whole thing down from memory. His name was Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. And this is his story. He was born in Salzburg, Austria, on the 27th of January, 1756. His father, Leopold, was a respected violinist and teacher. His older sister, Maria Anna, the family called her Nannel, was a gifted keyboard player. And little Wolfgang watched her practice. By the age of 5, he was not only playing the keyboard and the violin, he was writing music of his own. Think about that. Most 5-year-olds are learning to tie their shoes. Mozart was composing. His father saw it and understood what he was looking at. So when Wolfgang was 7, Leopold packed the family into a carriage and took his 2 children across Europe. From 1763 to 1766, the Mozart children performed for the courts of Europe. Munich, Paris, London, Amsterdam. They played for kings and queens. Wolfgang would improvise on themes given to him on the spot. Sometimes, to prove he wasn't a trick, they covered the keyboard with a cloth, and he played anyway. But there is something we should say honestly. Those years were exhausting. The travel was hard, the children often fell ill, and both Wolfgang and Nannel paid a price for their fame in childhood. And Nannel, every bit as talented, was expected, as a woman of that time, to stop. She never had the career her brother had. Wolfgang kept going. And in 1770, at 14, he arrived in Rome. This is where our story began. Each year, during Holy Week, the Sistine Chapel choir sang a piece by Gregorio Allegri, the Miserere. Haunting, beautiful, and secret. The Vatican kept the score to itself. The story goes that Mozart heard it once, went back to where he was staying, and wrote it out from memory. A few days later, he returned to hear it again, and corrected the small details he had missed. Now, historians do debate this story. Our main source is a letter written by his father, who was, understandably, a very proud man. And the music may have been better known outside Rome than the legend suggests. But here is what we do know for certain. On the 4th of July, 1770, Pope Clement XIV honored the 14-year-old boy with the Order of the Golden Spur. Whatever really happened in that chapel, it was enough to impress a pope. As Mozart grew up, something began to trouble him. In his time, a composer was a servant. You wore a uniform, you wrote what your employer asked for, and you ate with the staff. For a young man who knew what he could do, it was unbearable. So in 1781, he did something rare. He left his position in Salzburg, moved to Vienna, and tried to live as a free, independent composer. It was a brave choice, and a difficult one. There were triumphs, glorious ones. The Marriage of Figaro, Don Giovanni, The Magic Flute, symphonies that still fill concert halls tonight, somewhere in the world. But there were also lean years, debts, illness, a city whose tastes moved on. He kept writing anyway. That is the part worth remembering. In 1791, the final year of his life, Mozart was working harder than ever. That year alone he completed The Magic Flute, a clarinet concerto of extraordinary tenderness, and began a Requiem, a mass for the dead, commissioned by a stranger. He never finished it. On the 5th of December, 1791, after a short illness, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart died. He was 35 years old. His student, Franz Xaver Süssmayr, completed the Requiem the following year. And now, 2 things you may have heard, which are not true. He was not poisoned by the composer Salieri. There is no evidence for it at all. In fact, Salieri went on to teach Mozart's own son. And he was not thrown into a pauper's grave. He was buried in a simple, unmarked grave which was, at that time, perfectly normal for a middle-class Viennese family, under the burial reforms of the day. The truth is quieter than the legend. But it's the truth. He kept writing anyway. That is the part worth remembering. Mozart lived 35 years. In that time, he wrote more than 600 works: symphonies, operas, concertos, sonatas, chamber music, sacred music. But quantity is not why we remember him. We remember him because his music sounds effortless, because a melody he wrote in a hurry 240 years ago can still stop a room today. Because whatever you are feeling, joy, sorrow, wonder, there is a piece of Mozart that seems to already know. He began as a child who simply loved sound, and he never stopped being that child. If you take one thing from his story, let it be this: talent opened the door, but it was the work, every single day, that built everything behind it. Now, listen for yourself. This is Eine Kleine Nachtmusik. Mozart wrote it in 1787 in Vienna. Thank you for spending this time with us. If this story was worth sharing, share it with someone younger. Subscribe to Dream Sounds Kids. The next story is Beethoven.